What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today. We're talking about rookies once again, but not running backs like yesterday. No. Today, we're talking about them ball catchers. That's right, the rookie wide receivers and maybe some potential breakouts. A lot of people have a lot of hype for a lot of names every single year, and I get it, right? Everybody's trying to find this year's Justin Jefferson. Now, Justin Jefferson came out last year and absolutely killed it and really outdid a lot of people's expectations, not so much talent-wise, but definitely production on the field and in fantasy football. And now everybody wants this year's Justin Jefferson. Are we going to have one this year? Don't get spoiled and think you get one every single year, but maybe we have a chance here in 2021. We're going to be talking about the top 5 currently ranked rookie wide receivers as far as the consensus rankings goes. And then I'm going to mention a 6th guy at the end because I kind of feel like he needs to be bumped up the rankings another slot or two and really be considered in fantasy football. He'll be somebody that we really watch here in the offseason heading into the regular season. Now, before I get into the list, I got to do something here real quick. I mean, it's getting hot out there, right? I mean, now that the weather is heated up, me and my family, we've gone to some water parks, we've gone to the beach, and I'm starting to notice a trend here, fellas. This warm weather, we put on swimsuits. We need to make sure we're taken care of, right? So you need to head over to manscaped.com and get yourself right now the perfect package 4.0. You thought 1.0 and 2.0 and 3.0 were good. 4.0 got you taken care of from start to finish. Not only will you get the amazing Lawnmower 4.0, but you'll also get yourself a weed whacker, some crop preserver, a crop reviver, a pair of boxer briefs, and a shed travel bag. Definitely something to get you on the right track here as the summer months continue. Nobody wants to see what some of y'all got going on down there, right? So head over to manscaped.com, use promo code HEADLINERS, all caps at checkout, receive 20% off your order and free shipping. Go take advantage of this offer right now before you go outside in anything more than like winter clothing. All right, fellas, make sure you're taken care of here during the summer months, but now it's time to talk about a few rookie wide receivers, some ball catchers in 2021 that could potentially break out. And as of right now, this is what the list looks like, right? These are the top 5 highest ranked rookie wide receivers as far as the consensus rankings go. Obviously, no surprise at the top, right? Jamar Chase coming in wide receiver 27 overall, followed by Devonta Smith, wide receiver 41, Jalen Waddle at 51, Rashad Bateman at 63, and Elijah Moore of the New York Jets, who is falling, by the way, at wide receiver 76. Currently the 5 highest rated rookies at the wide receiver position. Now, what's kind of crazy to look at, right? These are the guys that are on top of the list, right? Only one of them has a quarterback that has started a full season this year. I mean, think about it. Jamar Chase, he's got Joe Burrow. He missed half a season last year. Devonta Smith, he's coming in. Jalen Hurts didn't start all year. Jalen Waddle with Tua. Elijah Moore now with new rookie Zach Wilson. Rashad Bateman, the only one with a quarterback that knows what to expect really in the NFL with Lamar Jackson, and a lot of the knocks on Lamar Jackson is involvement in the passing game. So we're going to have to dive into a few things here, but just a little bit crazy that out of these 5 guys, only one of them has a quarterback that has started an entire NFL season. Now, we're going to do this one a little bit different for the wide receivers than we did for the running backs, right? For the running backs, we just wanted them to finish top 24. This time, we're kind of looking for the next Justin Jefferson, right? So I figured, why not figure out what we need to get inside the top 10, the top 15, and the top 20? So I hit the history books, right? And I went back the past 5 years to find out on average how many fantasy points these wide receivers score in order to finish in these categories. So for the top 10, the wide receivers need to get over 200 fantasy points, coming in at 208 points per year. At the top 15, drops down to 183 fantasy points per year. Top 20, 175 fantasy points per year. So you can really see the difference between 15 and 20 is minimal, but the difference between 10 and 15, a pretty big jump. That's going to be difficult, especially for a rookie wide receiver to even come close to those numbers. It really gives you some appreciation for what Justin Jefferson did last year. But really seeing those fantasy points there on the screen doesn't really tell you what these guys need to do in order of, statistical equivalence to produce those type of fantasy points, right? I mean, cool, yeah, 208 points, Jake. What does that mean? Well, I've got it figured out for you right here. For 208 fantasy points, they need to be in the vicinity of 90 receptions, 1,300 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That's to finish inside the top 10. To finish inside the top 15 and get that 183 fantasy points, we're looking about 80 receptions for 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns. Top 20, remember, not much further behind, 175 points. So we're looking at 70 receptions, just over 1,000 yards, and 5 touchdowns as well, in order to reach those point totals and give them that opportunity to finish inside the top 10, 15, or 20. But as we look a little bit further, we need to make sure that those numbers, that those potential projections, are they even, going to be possible? What do they need in order to hit those numbers? Well, on average, I'm talking like a really good year. I mean, I may have over-exaggerated a little bit. Not every target that a wide receiver gets is going to be caught, right? If they can catch 70% of their targets, they're having themselves a great year and getting some good quarterback play. So in order to get 90 receptions, I figured out they would need 117 targets. And to get the 1,300 yards, they need to average 14.4 yards per reception. Both of those doable numbers, right? Not easy to get by any means, but very doable. For top 15, to get 80 receptions, they need to hover right around 104 targets and 13.75 yards per reception to get that 1,100 yards. Again, very doable for some of these guys. Top 20, now it's starting to get a little bit more attainable, right? Because they only need to get about 91 targets to get their 70 receptions, and they need to average 15 yards per reception to get that 1,050. So here's the issue with top 20, right? More big plays, right? They need to average more yards per reception because they're not getting as many receptions because they're not getting as many targets. So they need to average more per reception. That 15 yards per target, that's a difficult number to hit. Not too many wide receivers on a yearly basis can hit that number. Maybe you're asking, how many receivers did that last year, Jake? Well, hey, thanks for asking, because actually I went back and looked. So if you look at wide receivers who had over 70 receptions and averaged over 15 yards per reception, there were only 4 last year in the NFL. Calvin Ridley, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, and Justin Jefferson. This is not, a club for everybody, I guess you could say. This is the elite of the elite that get those type of receptions and that time of yards per reception. So that's going to be a little bit more difficult, I think, right there. To finish inside the top 20, they just need to be a little bit more efficient, right? They need to get those chunk plays, those big plays. That's going to be a problem maybe for some of these guys. So let's go ahead and go down and see, all right, now we know how many targets they need to get. We know how many yards per reception they need to get. Do they even have that many available targets in their offense to go in there and get in their first year? Well, here we go. Vacated targets coming in from 2020. You can see right here that the Bengals, they got a lot, right? Losing A.J. Green adds a big bump to that. It's over 100 targets just right there. I know Gio Bernard's numbers are in there also from the backfield, but still a lot of vacated targets in an offense that didn't have Joe Burrow all of 2020. The Eagles, they have 81 vacated targets. This one kind of depending what's going to happen with Zach Ertz. Doesn't sound like he's coming back, right? So they're going to have a lot of available targets there. The Dolphins with 69, the Ravens with 70, and the Jets with 118. So the Jets, another team that has some serious potential here for Elijah Moore to get some volume, right? Well, let's go ahead and see what changed, right? What changed with some of these teams from 2020 to 2021? It's great that they have these vacated targets, but are these rookies going to be the only ones going in there and getting those targets? And the absolute answer is no. There's no way that, obviously the Bengals, get 195 vacated targets and that all goes the way of Jamar Chase. That is not going to happen, right? They're going to give more volume to T. Higgins. We already knew that. Tyler Boyd's still in the mix. Joe Mixon will absorb some of those in the backfield. Yeah, Jamar Chase is going to have an opportunity, and he was the only pass catcher added this offseason, so that helps. That gives him that leg up because, honestly, he should be a shoo-in for 100-plus targets right there. For the Eagles, only added Devonta Smith. However, remember, Jalen Reagor wasn't 100% healthy all of last year either, so he'll require a little bit more targets playing an entire season in 2021. For the Dolphins, they added Jalen Waddle. Cool, we like Jalen Waddle, but they also added Will Fuller. So now you got Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. Can Tua supply all these guys? That's something we'll have to talk about. What about the Ravens? Well, they added Rashad Bateman and Sammy Watkins. Now, we know Sammy Watkins is going to explode week 1 and then totally disappear rest of the season, but he is still another receiver there in the mix. We know about Hollywood Brown already and Mark Andrews. Can Lamar Jackson supply all those guys? Something else we'll look at here in a little bit. And for the Jets, they kind of revamped their entire team, right? New coaching staff, new franchise quarterback, a lot more pass catchers. They not only got Elijah Moore, but brought in Corey Davis. Keelan Cole from the Jags is there now as well. A lot more options in New York than maybe we've seen here in years past. So we'll go back to our overall standings here, but we're going to break these down one at a time, right? So we're going to start right here at the top. Let's go to Jamar Chase. So he's currently wide receiver 27. We can see what he needs to finish inside the top 10, 15, and 20 right here. We see the 195 vacated targets, and really the only change is they added him to the roster, right, as far as pass catchers go. Now, the yards per reception when he was with Joe Burrow at LSU was 21.2 yards per reception, which is absolutely huge. So I don't think he's going to have an issue hitting, 13, 14 yards per reception here in the NFL. 100% very doable for Jamar Chase. Cincinnati, they're going to be a top 10 team in the NFL as far as total pass attempts go. They almost hit that number without Joe Burrow the entire season. You're telling me they've drafted Jamar Chase to go with Higgins and Boyd and they're not going to continue to throw a lot? No, that bodes well for Jamar Chase. Plus, he's going to play in a division that puts up a lot of points, right? They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. Their defense is average to below average, which means they'll be losing in games and having to throw to keep up. Definitely an opportunity for Jamar Chase to get those readily available targets. In my opinion, Jamar Chase is the guy as of right now that has that potential to be Justin Jefferson in 2021. I'm not saying he is the guy, right? Because there's a lot of variables here, and we need to keep Joe Burrow upright in order for that to happen. But you can also say this about almost any wide receiver in the NFL. If their quarterback goes down, their statistical achievements are going to plummet for almost every wide receiver. It's not like it's just for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. But remember, the chemistry is already there. A lot of people want to knock Jamar Chase because of his separation skills. Well, where he lacks in separation, he makes up in contested catches and getting those 50-50 balls and finding the end zone. The guy is an elite wide receiver. He's a potential top 15 finish for me here in 2021. Let's go ahead and move on to Devonta Smith now, who is currently wide receiver 41. We got the same numbers up there so we can compare him. He's got the 81 vacated targets there in Philadelphia. Not exactly what we want to see, right? We would like to see more because Jalen Hurts isn't exactly a guy that's going to go out there and throw the ball 50 times every single week, right? They were going to be reliant on his legs. They need to involve a running game. They don't want to overwork him because Jalen Hurts is not somebody with his efficiency numbers that you want to throw that much. If you're throwing that much with Jalen Hurts, you're constantly losing because you're playing from behind by like a ton, right? You want him to hover in that sweet spot of 30 to 35 times a game. Does that give Devonta Smith enough opportunity at targets with only 81 vacated targets? And then I went back and I looked. So talking about the sweet spot for Jalen Hurts, he averaged 33 pass attempts a game. If you were to, take that over the span of an entire season, he would have ranked as 24th overall. They're just not going to be that high volume passing team that we may see like with the Cincinnati Bengals. And that's going to hurt Devonta Smith. He's going to be more reliant on the big plays, right? Kind of similar to Deshaun Jackson is how I view Devonta Smith in this offense. Very, very capable of the big plays, right? 100%. I'm not taking that away from him whatsoever, but can he get them consistently enough to hit those numbers? If anything, top 20. But honestly, in my opinion, looking at everything on the board right now, the cards are stacked against him, and I'm going to say that Devonta Smith finishes just outside the top 20 here in 2021. On to Jalen Waddle now, who we see as wide receiver 51, 69 vacated targets. Yeah, that's awesome, but not awesome, if you know what I mean. That's not a whole lot, especially since they added Will Fuller as well. I mean, we're not talking about all they really have is Jalen Waddle. No. They have Jalen Waddle, Will Fuller, Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, Myles Gaskin in the back. I mean, there's weapons all over the place. Can Tua really, supply all of them like a lot of people want him to? 5 of the 6 games that Tua won as a Miami Dolphin in 2020, he threw less than 30 times a game. That's not a lot. That's like one of the fewest in the NFL, and it really doesn't bode well for Jalen Waddle to be able to go out there and sniff right around 100 targets, right? He's a field stretcher. He's going to get a big play now and again, but I kind of view him kind of like a Devonta Smith this year until I really see Tua take that huge step forward to where he can supply all these weapons with targets. It's going to be an uphill battle, and I'm going to have to say that Jalen Waddle finishes outside the top 20 as well this year. That brings us to Rashad Bateman here. Remember, he's the only guy with a quarterback who's played all 16 games in a full NFL season here so far. Currently, wide receiver 63, with 70 targets available in this offense, and they did also add Sammy Watkins. The problem here is the targets, right? We know that Baltimore is not going to be a pass-heavy team. They're going to be a run-heavy team every single year. Now, we do expect Lamar to continually take small steps forward in the passing game. And don't get me wrong, Rashad Bateman is a huge step forward. I love this kid. If you've seen any film from him in minicamp, he is just the prototypical speed and size wide receiver that can create mismatches and dominate all over the field. What worries me is in the past, we've seen Mark Andrews dominate the red zone type of area, right? He's the guy that Lamar would go for. Well, what happens with Rashad Bateman in the mix now? Does Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman eat into each other's red zone targets? Because the touchdowns is where they're going to make their money in Baltimore, because the volume more than likely isn't going to be there, and that's what worries me. Anywhere else, Rashad Bateman may be towards the top of my list. In Baltimore, with added weapons, because remember, don't forget about Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews, like we mentioned, there's other options there, right? I do think Rashad Bateman in the near future finishes inside the top 15. I just don't see it in 2020. He's another one of these guys that I think is going to fall a little bit short and not get the volume he needs to finish in any one of these categories. And then we'll finish it up with Elijah Moore here of the Jets, currently wide receiver 76. 118 vacated targets. That's great, right? That's what we want to see. Those triple digits really make us feel a little bit better. What kind of hurts a little bit, though, is they added Elijah Moore, obviously. They added Corey Davis. We talked about in the open of adding Keelan Cole. There's other options there in New York, right? I mean, what about the backfield of Michael Carter and okay, not Tevin Coleman, but you know what I mean. There's plenty of options in this offense that maybe they haven't had in years past. The part that really worries me here is the restructuring of the contract of Jamison Crowder. Had they not done that, and had he been a camp casualty, Elijah Moore skyrockets up the rankings because the volume will 110% be there. But now that they've restructured the contract of Jamison Crowder and brought him back, they play the exact same role in an offense. How many times are we going to see a 4 wide receiver set in New York? Sure, it's going to happen. I'm not discounting that at all. But it's not going to happen enough for him to get 91 targets, and that's going to be the problem. I can see him racking up receptions, moving the chains at times, but not being the guy that can really get the yardage or touchdowns in this offense. I love the talent of Elijah Moore. I loved the landing spot of Elijah Moore until the re-signing or the restructuring there of Jamison Crowder. That's what worries me, and that's why I got him finishing outside the top 20 as well. All right, so those are currently the top 5 ranked rookie wide receivers by the consensus. But I mentioned at the beginning that there's another name that I think we really need to pay attention to, and he may overtake Elijah Moore there at the bottom of those rankings here in the near future, possibly. But I don't want you to forget the name Terrace Marshall Jr. of the Carolina Panthers. This guy has a chance to be this year's Justin Jefferson, and that may sound crazy to some people, but he comes into an offense where he's familiar with it because his offensive coordinator from LSU is the offensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers and Joe Brady. They have an upgrade at quarterback with Sam Darnold. They have vacated targets because of the departure of Curtis Samuel. There is an opportunity in this offense. Plus, their defense isn't that great overall. They're going to be trailing a lot, having to throw a lot in a tough division. The cards are lined up for Terrace Marshall to be a little bit of a surprise this year, and he's not even ranked that high. So don't forget about that name going into your fantasy drafts. You can get him super, super late because a lot of people aren't paying attention to him, but we're going to be watching him here throughout the offseason. But I can also hear the comments. All right, Jake, cool. You told us that these guys aren't finishing inside the top 20. What do we do with them? We just cross them off the list altogether? No, you don't. We talk about it all the time. Everybody has value. Everybody has value. Everybody has value. Everybody has value except Ronald Jones. Everybody has value. And it's the same with these guys, right? The problem with these guys is, for the most part, with the exception of Jamar Chase, who I will have as my wide receiver 2, as long as I've gone heavy running back early. If I've gone heavy running back early, I'll take the risk with Chase as my number 2. Otherwise, I want him to be my number 3 if I didn't go heavy running back early. All of the other wide receivers we talked about in this video, wide receiver 4s. I will put them on my roster as wide receiver 4s and hope and cross my fingers that they break out. Do I want all of these guys? No. I will only take a shot on one of them. I'm not going to load my roster with 5 guys that have potential but may all be busts. Give me one, maybe 2 if they're super late, and then give me another solid guy on the bench that, can fill in if needed in case these guys fail. But the upside is there, right? The potential for these guys is obviously through the roof. They're all super talented, and none of them am I just off the bandwagon on. You just have to make sure you limit your risk on a yearly basis and not overload your roster with too many rookies because you're excited for the brand new toy. Don't do that in fantasy football. It's a recipe for a disaster every single year, and people fall into it year after year after year. But I want to know what you think. Out of the guys that we talked about here today, which ones are you targeting in your fantasy football drafts? Which ones do you think have that super high potential to finish in that top 10, top 15, top 20? Or are there some guys here that you really just don't care about? I want to know down below in the comment section, so make sure you leave those comments. I would love to interact with you guys here over the next few days. So hopefully you have a great rest of your day. Do me a favor, hit the like button. If you like the content, subscribe as well, because we're not stopping until the end of the year. Daily videos. There's going to be some days where we have more than one video. We got you covered, all things NFL here. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. We greatly appreciate the support, and we'll talk to you later.